Avengers! Assemble.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Excelsior, the world's #1 Marvel's Avengers podcast. I'm your director, Christian Buckley, as always joined by the Apex legend, Jack Martin.
Excelsior, Christian. A huge Excelsior on the biggest week since launch, I would have to say.
Yes, a big Black Panther episode. So the stars aligned, the meteor crashed on this week, and it is a whole lot of Wakanda, Black Panther, and T'Challa content.
Do you think Marvel finally heard about this video game and said, you know what, there's a War for Wakanda expansion coming out. Maybe we should release our T'Challa-themed What If episode at the same time. It seems like that there may have been a conversation, maybe an email sent.
Yeah. I think Bill Boseman and Kevin Feige ran into each other in an elevator, and they just started talking about what projects they're heading, and they were like, oh yeah, so August we got this Black Panther thing dropping at Marvel Games, and Feige's like, oh, really? You do?
There's
like,
a game out?
Yeah, I'm sure that was the first response he had. And then he was like, well, as it turns out, we got a whole What If episode. We were going to release it in September, but that like early September, so we could just bump that up a bit, you know, and just have some cool synergy for this brand.
Oh yeah. Like that must have been the exact conversation. I think we nailed it. Another Black Panther thing happening in our realm.
Oh yeah.
Black Panther 2 just started filming around our neck of the woods in Massachusetts. So that's really cool.
Yeah, my schedule's pretty packed now because of some work things that have been changing. And this weekend, my girlfriend was like, hey, we should go on over and see if we can take us a little sneak peek of what they're shooting there. But unfortunately, I don't think I can make the time this weekend, but I really want to because it's very cool that any Marvel movie is shooting in Massachusetts, but specifically Black Panther 2, I feel like is such a strange beast with the MCU because I feel like at least some of the projects we know coming up, we have a good idea of what they are. Black Panther 2 is like nobody really knows what's going on with that movie.
No, and all eyes are especially on that movie, particularly. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting one to keep an eye out for. Maybe if I have time, I'll run over to where they're filming and get some exclusives for Excelsior. We'll see. I'm sure really it's not that much people in costumes and stuff like that, even if you see that. But yeah, it's still cool. It's still cool that production's ongoing, and it's a stone's throw away from you and I, so it's good stuff.
You want to make a quick prediction of what scene they're shooting there?
Ooh.
Because I have a guess.
I don't know. I know, at least I think that they were using the police department wherever they're filming as a shooting location. Okay. So I don't know. What are you speculating?
I'm going to say that it's some scene that takes place at one of the Wakandan outreach centers that they talk about at the end of the first Black Panther of like setting up across the world. And one of them just happens to be in Massachusetts.
That's a good call. Hoping for a baseball scene because there's a new ballpark where they're filming. I know it's not that, but that'd be cool.
Yeah, well, we will see what happens. We'll see if Jack gets any exclusive set photos or anything like that. But
that'd be amazing.
Yeah, dude. Why don't we dive into this Black Panther heavy episode of Excelsior, starting out with Fury's report. This is being recorded on Thursday, August 19th. Today is the start of the new event in Marvel's Avengers, the Corrupted Vibranium event, which, much like the Red Room takeover, the Tachyon Anomaly event, comes with it multiple challenges for each hero. Each hero, upon completion, will get a nameplate and 2 exotics. Jack, have you checked any of this out yet?
I was going to, and then I got hit with that PS5 update. And the update took very quickly, right? And then you got to the copying portion. And that could be ongoing right now. Still, I don't know. I left my PS5 to go record this. I don't know what's happening with that. So no, I did not get a chance to check it out. But I imagine you just kind of beat up a bunch of vibranium here and there.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It probably pops up in uh, Manhattan and
Yeah.
Utah and all the other places that we've been to before. But we did talk about this event last week. You and I seem to be on the same page of just like, it's another kind of whatever event. At least I'll say this, you're getting some exotics out of it. And because the loot pool for this event is skewing towards the Sonic and Vibranium gear, maybe, I don't know if they added new exotic sets to the game, but an exotic Vibranium gear piece or Sonic gear piece could be really cool. So this is a guaranteed way to get a shot. I don't think you can farm these. It seems like it's a one and done for each quest, but still pretty cool.
Yeah. Good to know. It's good to know that the expansion, I guess, doesn't really stop at the story in a sense, and we'll get into that later. But yeah, it's good that this is sort of continuing War for Wakanda, and that it doesn't just mean the 3+ hour campaign, even if it is just this, kind of so-so event.
Sure. Speaking of a so-so event, earlier this week, the War Table video thing happened. I reacted to it on JoyClicks, youtube.com/JoyClicks. It was, I think when they were starting to manage expectations, that was a good thing because I watched it and I'm pretty sure outside of some new footage, everything they talked about and highlighted was stuff that we covered in last week's episode through all the blog posts and all the tweets and all those things. Like, we got to see Black Panther in action a little more 24 hours before the expansion dropped. But it was, like you and I said, it seemed like it was for the crowd that has been away forever or tried the free weekend and forgot about the game. It seemed like more of a general audience grab of a presentation than the War Table that all you fans have been waiting for.
I think you're right. It seems like the goal of doing it a day before was to generate buzz on Twitter and like social media, just so people could see that, oh, there's a Black Panther expansion coming to Marvel's Avengers. Oh, I have that game, or oh, that game's $20. I'll pop in. Oh, and it's tomorrow? Oh, perfect. I'm pretty sure that was kind of the rationale, because you're right, we really didn't get all too much new information. I think the biggest disappointment for me wasn't that there was no Spider-Man, because, it's always a grasping at straws kind of thing. But my biggest disappointment with that was that they didn't really explain how the expansion is going to progress past the story. Obviously, we mentioned the Corrupted Vibranium event, but there was no word on like the potential raid, if that's going to be a thing anytime soon, or like the cloning lab, or not the cloning lab, the mining facility, things like that, which I think are more important to the game than either the story or like these random small events. So that was a little disappointing. I'm hoping maybe next week we'll get a little bit more information on sort of what's next.
Yeah, I'm with you. Next week would be awesome. I imagine they're probably going to do their next big roadmap reveal or a new dedicated general war table. I imagine that will be around the early September year one ending anniversary date. Now that we have an event that's ongoing, we have an expansion that seems to be the focus of a lot of marketing and promotional material. So I think they're probably just going to ride that out until the 1 year mark hits, and then they talk about what's next. That's where my expectations lie right now.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm just hoping for like maybe, how like we get the War Table blog and then there's the update section, and it's like, hey, we're working on X, Y, and Z. I'm just hoping for that next week, which I think is probably likely.
Yeah, and pair that with the fact that this week there really is no normal War Table blog. I don't think you're too off base to expect that.
Right.
There is another thing that was highlighted this week on the Square Enix Marvel's Avengers website, and that is the Endgame edition of the game. Did you hear about this, Jack?
Yeah, I saw this, I think, in-game before even seeing this anywhere else. So it's $60, and it's a $20 upgrade if you already have the game. And it comes with 2 Endgame skins. Unfortunately, in my opinion, they are probably the 2, quote-unquote worst Endgame skins, being Black Widow's and Hawkeye, #Hairgate. Started at the feet, ended at the neck.
Yep.
Of course, that's how it works. So that's a bit unfortunate. I think it's a really cool idea. There's a bunch of like other skins and like emotes and stuff included. So like, if you, I don't even know if I could recommend it for $60. Honestly,
I don't think
expensive.
I could either.
That's really expensive. Like if it was you get the game and you get your choice of 2 of the end game skins, then maybe that's a little bit more worthwhile. I think $40 is probably more reasonable. 45, yeah. 60 is, I don't know. That seems like a lot.
I think 60 probably would have been warranted if they gave you every end game skin. Because like when I heard that title, I was like, oh, and I saw the first skin was on the list. I think was Hawkeye. I was like, oh, cool. So it's just a way to package all the skins. It's kind of like basically giving you a bundle. That's nice for the people who've either walked away, sold their copy, or haven't dove in yet. Because they pointed out in the blog post, they're like, hey, all our expansions are free. So you're just basically buying the game with a value of like $80 worth of stuff, but it's only 60. I think that would have probably been a bit better if just, like I said, it was the endgame skins. Because if we do the math real quick, I'm pretty sure right now, Jack, do you have your phone with you?
I do.
Can you just look up Marvel's Avengers PS4?
Sure.
And
yes.
see how much a copy is. Like the first, like under shopping.
Yeah.
A trusted site maybe, or something.
So I've done this recently, but I'll do it again to see if anything has changed. Yeah, Best Buy, $25.
Okay. And I believe GameFly has pre-owned copies they sell pretty consistently for like $18 as well.
Mm-hmm.
You buy...
Yeah, it's sub 30.
Yeah, you buy either the GameFly pre-owned or new from Best Buy. That is still a fraction of this, and you are getting the game, the next-gen upgrade, and War for Wakanda, all for free. The only thing you're missing out on is, like you said, the 2 weakest endgame skins, and then like Gladiator Hulk and like Bleeding Edge Iron Man. So like it definitely feels like not the best deal if you look at it a little longer, but I can see why they're repackaging something right now, you know.
Yeah, like I think there's a better case to upgrade if you already have the game for $20, because one of these skins, if you just want to buy it with actual money, I think would equate to like $14.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a bargain. It's unfortunate you have no say in the skins. And I don't know the rationale behind that. I know this is like a small little thing, but wouldn't you want to sell your better skins? Like maybe because people bought the Iron Man and Cap skins, and the Thor skin. So like maybe they want to package this in a way to make it a little bit more appealing, like 2 skins a little bit more for the price of 1 of skins you probably wouldn't have purchased. Maybe that was the rationale, but yeah, I think for me, if I didn't have like the Cap and Thor skin, for example, I'd be a little bit more tempted to purchase this.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. And like I don't have the Widow or Hawkeye ones, but I have the Black Widow solo movie skin, so like I'm not going to change it because I really like the white. I don't have any of the others, but again, I don't know if I want to just toss out $20 for Gladiator Hulk and Hawkeye, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, if one of you Agents of Excelsior buy it, let me know, because that'd be cool, I guess. I don't know who's actively looking for the game right now, who missed out on the free weekend or the sales leading up to this, but I'm sure there are people. But speaking of MCU skins, Jack, the marketplace this week, it is Black Panther heavy, but there is one item that is a pretty enticing. Did you see this?
Of course I did. This is amazing stuff.
Would you like to describe what we have in our hands potentially? I don't know if you bought it, but
yes. So I haven't bought it,
okay,
but I was certainly tempted. This is the Avengers 1 Captain America outfit, which I think I was expecting, and maybe you were expecting this to be one of the first MCU skins ever released. Obviously, they did the Endgame line, and this is the first like non-Endgame MCU skin. And it looks awesome in the game. I think a lot of people give this suit, like they're a little critical of the suit in the movie. It's like a little colorful and kind of like sticks out or whatever.
I think it's just the lighting.
Could be that. But this is a great video game suit. Like,
oh yeah,
10 out of 10 video game suit. Have you bought it, or are you very tempted to?
So I streamed when I started the update, right? My first experience with the new update, I was like, I want to stream this. The first thing I did before I even started the game was I bought that suit because
nice.
I'm with you. Like I'm so nostalgic for it. And then when I was looking at it in game after I bought it, because I bought it first, then I looked at it second. Yeah, it looks really good in game, and like walking around the Wakandan palace, like, it looks great, and I really do like it, and I kind of like it in game more than the end game cap suit, if I'm being honest. Like, I think it just, like you said, fits really well as a video game outfit, and I think the voice matching for this cap and that suit, it kind of works for me. So
yeah, I always get sort of sucked in with video game skins for like the bright and colorful ones, and typically the more like traditional ones, like for example in Marvel's Spider-Man, I would practically always go by default to just the classic Spider-Man suit, the one that you start the game off with and eventually regain like fixed. Just because it's colorful and it's classic, and this sort of reminds me of that. So yeah, this is a really cool skin. I'm glad they added it.
Do you think this is indicative of any new skin line? Like, are we about to get Avengers 1, Thor, and Iron Man, and Widow next week, or what's up?
If they opt for a second suit that is Avengers 1 inspired, then they'll probably finish off the whole line. I kind of just hope they jump around, though.
Me too.
Because Black Panther doesn't show up in the MCU till Civil War. So, like, I don't want to have, 7 weeks of, or however many weeks, of, Avengers 1 suits for them to finally go jump ship to a different line, and then Black Panther could potentially be considered. So, yeah, I do kind of hope they take more of a holistic approach and just sort of, jump around the MCU.
Me too, and I'm glad you said Civil War because that is the Black Panther suit that I want the most in this game.
Nice.
So I think that is really everything for Fury's report this week, because again, a lot of the focus is on War for Wakanda. So why don't we move on to some Stark realities? Jack, how much do you hate this expansion? How bad is it? Is the game dead? What do you think?
No, I don't hate this expansion at all. I liked it. I liked it a decent amount, actually. I enjoyed my time overall with it. I put in about 3.5 hours. I'd say between 3 and 3.5 hours into the expansion. So definitely like a meatier DLC, obviously, compared to Hawkeye, which took me like an hour, or like Kate Bishop, which took me probably like 2 hours. So that was nice. For me, the story, the voice cast, and the new environments were probably like the standouts for me from this DLC. Even though technically, yes, you could just say, oh, this is just a skinned area and you're just jumping around the map and you're not really paying attention to the areas you're jumping past. Like, sure, I get that, but it was nice being in these like completely new, very fresh environments with new sound design and like obviously visual aesthetics. Like, I just sometimes would sit and listen to the bugs chirping in the woods, in the jungle a lot of times. And yeah, I feel like this was a really good expansion. And the best part of it is that it's completely free. I don't think that should be overlooked. Like, I'm comparing this to, like, what was it, the Arkham City DLC that had Harley Quinn's Revenge, and that, like, I paid money for that, and it was good. Like, it wasn't bad or anything. But this was like a free 3.5 hour DLC, plus like some replayability with some different like war zones and things like that. So yeah, I'm impressed that they put something out that was this meaty with a pretty crazy voice cast, with new environments and things like that, and a completely new character that was totally free. So I think that was kind of the focus for me. Was wow, they did this and it was free. So yeah, what about you?
Yeah, so I think the trend is continuing with these operation drops where I take a bit more time to get through them than you do because I think I'm somewhere in the 4 to 5 hour range. But that might just be because like I didn't find myself dying often until the final mission. For me, it really was a lot of just like exploring as many corners of every area for every mission as I could, doing pretty much every puzzle or button door that I came across. Like, I was leaning into that checkbox habit of like I can't move on until I clear the map of all these little icons. Um, so yeah, I think the time I did spend though I really enjoyed, and I think like you said, I'm very impressed with multiple things about this expansion. Like you're saying, the fact that it's free is a very, very important aspect that shouldn't be overlooked. Um, and while I could understand somebody feeling like it's just reskinned objectives and stuff like that from the main game, I think they did a really good job of masking that. I think the way they sort of recontextualized some of the blow up the server or defend the hacking, like that type of thing you're doing isn't different that much from what you're doing in the main game. But the context behind it, what you're actually doing when you are standing in that area to progress something, like it made it more interesting than more of the same from all the hives and launch campaign stuff. So the Wakandan set dressing, I think, carried that a long way for me, and the new way to look at some objectives, I think, made it feel fresh.
Yeah, totally. And that's something that people have been complaining about for a while with this game is that everything is just kind of the same over and over again, and like that will be the case with this expansion once we've played it long enough. But it is different enough where, yeah, you are shooting a target to unlock this room or X, Y, and Z, but it's just different enough where the muscle memory has changed, and it is a little bit different. So yeah, I think you're right. I feel like they did a good enough job of varying the different objectives that you're doing enough to make you like go through and be like, oh, this is a little different. I'm gonna approach this a little bit differently.
Yeah, and I think that's a hard thing to do in a game like this where you have a foundation that, like, these characters can only do so many things to interact with the world, right? So a lot of objectives do come down to standing in an area, or beating something up, where in Destiny 2, like, mainly Destiny 1, there was a lot of, like, clear the room or wait for the hack to go through. And Destiny 2 definitely has that still, but the way they've been able to throw twists on it, like I have hundreds of hours in Destiny and I don't feel like I'm hacking the door again, like a lot of people felt and critiqued about the original launch. So if this is a process we can build on over time and Crystal can experiment more and more, the more we try to cover up the actual objective of what we're doing, I think that could breed more creativity and get us to a point where it's like, okay, yeah, we're initiating this objective by standing here, but I'm so distracted by this really cool enemy we're fighting that I don't remember that, yeah, I'm standing in a zone to hack a thing like I was in September 2020. So,
Right.
gives me faith. With that in mind, do we want to talk about Black Panther as a hero in the game,
Yeah,
like a playable character?
let's do it.
So, what do you think of his kit overall? Like, how are you feeling as Black Panther?
This is honestly probably one of my biggest disappointments with the expansion is that after like going through the whole campaign, I forget what level I'm at. I might be close to you. You have here on the dock that you're like level 20, power level 42. I had a catalyst going the whole time, so I'm probably around there. My biggest issue with this expansion is that I didn't really love playing as Black Panther. He, for the most part, when I was playing through the campaign, he felt like oddly weak. And I was like expecting him to be a little bit more powerful as a character. I mean, he's got a vibranium suit and like claws and all that, so I was expecting him to be a little bit more beefy, but it honestly like took a lot of hits for me to get through different enemies and stuff like that. And I don't know if it was the new enemies are just tougher, or whatnot, but yeah, I didn't really get a good sense of his like light and heavy combos, and at certain points, I found that using his ranged attacks proved to be like pretty helpful, but they weren't the most satisfying to use because you essentially just you hold down the left trigger and you spam the right trigger, which isn't super fun to use. Obviously, I'm saying that as an Iron Man main, so I get that, but I was expecting to play him as melee, and I mostly did, but he just wasn't powerful enough for me, and maybe it's because I wasn't level 50 with him, but I felt that the learning curve for other characters was a little bit easier, and I honestly am still having difficulty like going through his skill tree and like discerning how to best use him, because like a lot of his skills have a ton of text in them, and it's just, for me at least, I found that difficult to sift through. What about you?
I wouldn't say I like disagree with you, because I definitely feel like Black Panther, specifically his skills, right? I feel like it's been a lot to wrap my head around. But in general, the way he feels, I do really like playing as him, and the light attacks he has, the sprint attack, the like coming out of a sprint attack stuff you can unlock, the pounce, all that stuff I really like, and I think is very fun to play, and is kind of what, to me at least, what we wanted the character to be, of a mix sort of Captain America and Black Widow, of kind of a brawler but a bit more agile and a little faster. I really like how he can close gaps with his pounce, but yeah, I think honestly the reason you're probably feeling that, because I felt it a bit too, is just the nature of what the game is, of it's an RPG, so technically we're starting a blank slate right now with this character, and I'm sure by the time we hit 5150 with Black Panther and we have him spec'd out with some really good exotic gear that makes him a tank, like high defense, high melee, he's gonna feel the way you wanted him to feel. But we've just come off like almost a full year of, for the most part, playing as godly overpowered in one skill stat or another for each of our heroes.
Yeah, I get that is the case, but when I was playing through like Hawkeye's expansion or like Kate Bishop's expansion, I definitely like had the sense pretty early on that I understood how the kits worked, and I liked how they played, and they didn't feel super weak. And it's maybe because they wanted this expansion to be longer, obviously, so like they wanted your progression to feel to take a little bit more time, which makes sense. But yeah, even like at the very beginning, especially like with RPGs, like they scale up with you as you go, and it felt like at every step of the way, like the enemies were a little slightly too powerful, and I was just constantly like mashing buttons and stuff to try and get people. So yeah, maybe it is a case where I'll have to be level 50 and like starting getting better gear and put more stats into melee and stuff like that. But yeah, for right now at least, I don't think Black Panther will be in my like rotating list of mains. I still really like Iron Man and Captain America, and to an extent Black Widow. But yeah, I'll probably try to get Black Panther up to 50, 150 maybe, and see where it goes from there. But yeah, at least through the campaign, I didn't necessarily enjoy my time with his character as much as I was expecting to.
Sure. I think maybe I'm misremembering, but could we like progress in the specialty and mastery skill trees throughout the main campaign, or do we have to beat the campaign to do that? For like the launch game, not this.
Yeah, so I know for Black Panther at least, it was level 15, then you could start messing with those. I think it was probably the same for those characters. where like you get to level 50 and then you can start messing with the specialty and mastery skill trees.
Okay, because wait, did you say 50 or 15?
15.
Huh. Okay, because maybe I just looked over it, but I'm at level 22 upon beating the final mission. I don't think I had them unlocked. I can check after, but yeah, I think that could also be a factor because, like with Thor, when I could mess with the Bifrost and make it this AoE fire chip damage thing, that again made me feel like I was stronger and I was like making the character more my own. With Black Panther, I'm still just unlocking his base level attacks right now. So I think that could be a factor too.
Right. And I honestly think a part of it for me is the game is getting in the way of itself, where one example is the incredibly long like descriptions for the skills. There are other games that do this way better, where it's like a very brief description of what the skill you're unlocking is, whereas this one is like like a very long paragraph sometimes.
Yeah, it's long.
And like I still like don't understand it as I'm reading through, and it like makes making choices very difficult. There's a lot of skills too, but also I love the idea of the pounce for Black Panther. I think that's incredibly unique to his character. But there are so many times where you try and do that on certain enemies that you would think you'd be able to. They're just like, bipedal humans, but you run into them and you just bounce right off. And it's like I don't feel like the game gives you a good description of which characters you can and can't jump off of. I have a feeling that might be Sonic characters, but even though I'll throw my my knives at them to like try and like debuff them, and it still doesn't work. So I don't know. There are just points where I feel like it was just like, this is Avengers. I forgot.
Yeah. I think there's also there's a skill I unlocked that I feel like I've had mixed success with it, but it was like, hey, if it's an enemy that you can't pounce on, if you're holding your intrinsic R2 down when you're pouncing, you will be able to land on them. And I think my understanding was that it was like the Sonic enemies that have that force field around them. But now that I'm thinking about it, I think that might just be for like the exos, like the big Avatar exosuits. Like, I think it's just for the larger enemies and like the spider bots, like the big spiders and stuff like that. So yeah, I think I need to spend more time with his skills and his fine tuning, but definitely it's been a little difficult to wrap my head around his kit as much as I wish I could,
Yeah, and I think it's because, and this isn't a bad thing, but I think it's because he's a little bit more complicated maybe than I was expecting.
Sure.
I was kind of just like you mentioned the mix between Cap and Black Widow, but definitely like I was expecting like a melee focused character, and he definitely is. There's no doubt about that, but it seems like there's more involved with like his intrinsic and stuff, and there are certain like combos that I haven't quite memorized yet. And I feel like the skill tree does a bad job of showing like what combos are available for him. And then you like have to mix intrinsic in like before certain moves in the combos, and it's kind of all going over my head at the moment. I feel like for me at least, he's probably the most difficult character to learn of the ones that are available.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Because I think the only combo I have memorized is 5 hits of square and then triangle, so like 5 lights and then a heavy to finish it, and then you do the flip that leads into the energy ground pound like dome of kinetic energy that just pulses out of you. And even that one you can get knocked out of in your animation when you go to triangle, so like it's definitely a little tricky. I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like my intrinsic is never charged. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong, but that has been my only, or my main thing that's like, what am I doing wrong here? Or what am I not understanding? Because I feel like I don't know how to charge his intrinsic
Yeah,
consistently or well enough. I don't know.
for me, I'll have my intrinsic like pretty full, and then like one hit out of the blue will just completely knock it out.
Sure.
Which I don't think is the case for like really any hero, unless it's like some sort of disruptor that you like run across or whatever. But yeah, so far I feel like this is a character that you really need to spend time with to really get going and really know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely taken some getting used to. He's not a bad character like by any means. I really
Oh no, yeah.
I like the idea of his kit. I just haven't really gotten around to like fully grasping it and comprehending it. So like maybe like who knows, like maybe in a month I'm like, oh yeah, Black Panther is my like top 3. But right now he's not up there. I'll have to just spend more time with him.
No, I'm with you. It seems like based off of all the information in his skill tree, there's a lot of nuance there, and he seems like a character with a very high skill ceiling. So it's probably just based off of what you put into him and the way you spec him out. Because I wouldn't say that. I mean, I guess you could say this about Hulk, but Hulk I thought was one of my least favorite characters to play in the main campaign. But the way I've seen people talking about their Black Panthers, who they have already very high, they're saying that he's a really good melee tank. And I feel like the game doesn't have a tank, really. Like, at least my Thor build is not a tank in the slightest. I barely invested in Hulk. I'm sure somebody made a tanky Hulk build, but having Black Panther be someone who can take a lot of damage and deal some out seems ideal. It just seems like that is more of an end game sort of achievement for you to find all your success in.
Yeah, it makes sense for him to be a tank because if you hold down the intrinsic, that just like blocks attacks.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Like you just absorb that and you deal damage while that's happening. I just haven't quite gotten there.
I like the parry a lot.
Yeah. Were we talking about this last week or maybe a couple weeks ago that Crystal Dynamics wanted Black Panther to be more parry focused rather than dodge focused? Because like I never parry ever.
Same.
And I found myself doing a lot more with Black Panther because it seems like he has somewhat of a more limited dodge capability compared to other characters.
Yeah, I've definitely night 1 I was dodging a lot just out of muscle memory. And because of my intrinsic problem, I've found myself going to do a parry and then looking at my bar and being like, oh, I'm tapped, and then having to dodge. But now that you say that, my Thor, I use the R2 parry a good amount because if somebody's coming to attack, I'll just summon the Odin Force and then it just like pulses lightning and then they stop their attack. So it's kind of similar, but I do really enjoy that it seems very powerful and creates a good gap between you and the enemy with Black Panther. So yeah, though, they absolutely wanted to invest in that, and I'm pretty sure you're right. Last week or the week before, we were going over an interview where they were talking about the way they built him. So it's cool. It worked, I think.
Yeah, totally.
Well, when it comes to the actual gameplay as well, I want to hear what you think about these new enemy types. The Claw mercenary faction, the Sonic enemy, the Vibranium infused stuff. Like, what do you think of these?
On the surface level, just like appearance-wise, it felt like a very fresh new wave of enemies.
Yes.
Obviously, like the spiders were kind of the big thing. Those are interesting enough. I noticed they included an arachnophobia warning at the beginning of the game now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's in like when you start up the game, there's like the long list of like disclosures or whatever, and arachnophobia is like towards the bottom. So that's interesting. But like the new like Claw villains are different enough that they're not the same like aimbots we've been fighting 1,000 times. But I really, really hate the Sonic characters. Not Knuckles. I'm talking about like the guys who will shoot these like Sonic abilities at you, and you literally cannot see. because like you're in like this fog of gray.
Yeah.
That's awful. I think that's really bad.
So it's definitely annoying. I've found that, I don't know if this is all the time, I think they shoot drones at you and then the drone floats around your head, and if you manage to like throw one of your daggers at them, they'll go away, which I'm glad that they're experimenting with enemies that can harm you in ways other than like missile spam, you know?
Oh, sure.
So I like that they're experimenting with this, and I do like the overshield guy and even the sonic shield to some degree, because I enjoy having to think differently about like, wait, so how do I do this again? That being said, I fully have yet to grasp the way to take out their shields, I think. But yeah, the fact that we have the one that is like the very close red overshield that looks like a Guardians of the Galaxy spacesuit, and then the bubble dudes, I like that there is these elements in the game that will push back against me just spamming combos. So I don't know how you feel about that.
I kind of wish that this expansion included a tutorial section in some way, or like even a harm room where it was like, hey, these are all the new characters you will meet in War for Wakanda, and this is the best way to take them out. And I found that Black Panther's harm room, along with Kate and Clint's harm rooms, are just not good at being like tutorials for the characters. They're very surface level. They don't go through all of the abilities at each character's disposals, and I feel like especially for new characters, those should be like pretty important tools for new players, or for players to like start off and learning how to do that. But with this being an expansion, I would have liked to have like a nice tutorial section in terms of like the different enemies you'll come across. Because like you, like even at the end of this campaign, I'm like, I don't even know how to take out these guys. I'm just spamming at this point. Yeah. So that would have been nice. That would have been nice.
What did you think of the opening mission for War for Wakanda?
I liked it. It reminded me of kind of like a standalone superhero game in a way. Yeah. You're just playing as T'Challa, running through the woods, scaring the heck out of bad guys. And I think you're on comms with Okoye, and yeah, you're just kind of talking through, heading to the city. I liked it a lot. What about you?
I liked it a lot too. I thought it was a very good long introduction, kind of a reintroduction to this Marvel universe. Good introduction to this character, really strong performances out the gate, and the way the mission escalates. I think in terms of the other first missions we've seen for other operations in the game, I think it's easily the strongest one. Like, I think this is a way better introduction to this story arc than A-Day was, even, personally. Because I thought A-Day was... I really like A-Day, but it was very on rails. This felt more like a natural, hey, we're going through the jungle, we reach this cliffside, we see the city being invaded, the Avengers show up, and then we keep progressing, and the Crossbones is here, and we have to fight Crossbones. Like, I really liked that opening mission a whole lot.
I think that's a good point. It is definitely... I feel like the game recognizes that you have been playing this game for a while, so, you don't really need the on-rail section, like you mentioned, from the A-Day mission. So they kind of just plop you in. And yeah, I feel like it ramps up quite well as a mission to the Crossbones section, and then leads really nicely into some good cutscenes right after that.
Yeah, and I really like the Crossbones fight a lot, surprisingly, like with the tank and how they sort of share that sonic barrier, and you got to do damage to one before you can do damage to the other. And I thought that was a creative way to do that, and I have yet to explore the post-game. I imagine Crossbones is a villain sector. I hope we see a mechanic like that in the Crossbones villain sector, because it's, again, another way to tackle an enemy in a fight that's kind of not like anything else we've done so far, which is good.
Yeah, I honestly didn't really get a good sense for Crossbones, because you are cut off from defeating him in that mission, and then towards the end he shows up, and I didn't really even like focus my attention on him. So yeah, I'm kind of hoping that he gets a villain sector and we can like kind of mess around with him more. I gotta say I haven't really been sold by any of the villains in this game yet, and that includes Claw and Crossbones in terms of combat. It's kind of all samey at this point. Like, there are some differences, yes, and I think Crossbones is probably one of the most different. I do like Monica, I will say. But yeah, nothing has really like stood out to me in terms of the villains yet, and that's definitely true for these two.
Sure. In terms of the general story, you say you like Monica. I imagine you're talking about that villain sector, because
yes, not the character.
story-wise, the Scientist Supreme is name-dropped in the final hour of the expansion by Shuri. Surprise, she's funding Claw, and she's not dead. Like,
yeah, what's happening?
Did we kill future Monica? Like, who did we kill?
I really don't know. Maybe it was like one of the clones she had of herself.
Sure.
I really don't know. That's something about the story I was a little confused by, in the fact that I don't know like how this really connects to the greater Marvel's Avengers story. It kind of just, the Avengers are just kind of here. Like, they followed AIM here. Like, they explain like, oh, there's like corrupted vibranium, and we like didn't really get a setup for that, I don't think. And this is like canonically after the Monica villain sector, you would think. So yeah, I don't really know what the deal is. It was definitely like a very insular story. Like, it took place within its own boundaries in a sense, and it wasn't super connected to like the main storyline of Marvel's Avengers.
Sure, like, Cap shows up and he's like, oh, the Resistance could use you, and it's like, we're still on our resistance? Like, we're still resisting?
Yeah.
We're resisting Monica still? I thought we killed her. But, no, I think that's fair. Like, the corrupted vibranium setup, I think, is fine. Like you said, there's a string to follow, potentially post-launch, of the expansion with that corrupted vibranium stuff and the event that's going on. I, story-wise, appreciate that it's kind of like 80% a Black Panther Wakanda story and then like 20% Marvel's Avengers the game story, because I think it's fleshing out this world more, and we still get some threads that are developed on, even though it seems like the Monica thread is kind of written in superficially. Like, I think I would have believed if Claw was just funding this himself, because he's probably the son. Well, we know his dad has a history. You could easily be like, yeah, so Claw's a warlord, and he's been in black market for a long time, funding this inevitable invasion. And I think that would have made enough sense, because I guess the only robots are the spiders that are tied to AIM, and I think there's been some riot bots in the campaign too. But yeah, I think they could have gotten away with no Monica here.
Yeah, they definitely could have, but I think they wanted to connect it to, like, that was the easy connection.
Yeah.
But I think I think you and I are both ready to be done with Monica. Like, she's not that strong of a villain in terms of like characterization or whatever. And I think we're just ready for like new stuff. And that includes her.
Well, unfortunately, her dialogue when she's introduced on that radio call is like, I'm trying to stop an alien invasion and nobody wants to help me, or something like that. So I imagine she's sticking around until the Kree invasion plot is dealt with, presumably sometime next year. But yeah, that is our next thing to deal with. I hope with all my heart, if Ultron is like one of the next arcs, it's not a Monica invention, because all the groundwork is there for it to be Hank Pym and Roy. And if Monica comes in being like, my next idea, murder robot, like,
yep,
it's gonna be a little silly, I think.
Definitely.
But Any other thoughts on the main story before we get into Easter eggs and sort of the resolution of it?
Um, no, nothing on the story. Like it was a fine story. I wasn't like blown away by any means.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just the draws for me was just sort of like wandering around the outpost, speaking to some of the characters there, and it kind of felt like a good, not 1-to-1 to the MCU's Wakanda, but like it felt familiar in the best way possible.
Yeah.
Like these are characters that make sense and we already know. And I feel like they did a really good job with the characters, and the voice cast was incredible.
Yeah, I think presentation-wise, they nailed it. Everything looked amazing. The performances were really good. Again, checking in with these characters that we all really enjoyed from the launch campaign. Seeing a lot of them have new dialogue was nice. I made sure to talk to everyone every chance I got to hear some new lines from the Avengers. Early in the campaign, I think Cap could walk around, right? And I talked to Bruce, and he talked about having imposter syndrome because the Wakandans were so much more intelligent than he was, and he shouldn't belong there. Like, there was some cool stuff that I thought fleshed out these takes on the Avengers. It was separated from the actual main story, so I was digging for that, but I'm with you. It was an enjoyable roller coaster through Wakanda.
I I did think it was funny that at the end of this, can we dip into spoilers?
Yeah, yeah.
So at the end of this, Black Panther is like, "Oh yeah, I guess I should be helping out the Avengers now." Like that, like he needed to explain why he was still going to be in this video game essentially, which I thought was funny. But it was cool for him to like be like, "All right, Shuri's the Queen Regent for now, while I go fight in Manhattan for 1,000 times over and over again." Just like contextually, I think that was really funny. But I liked how the story ended. It was just really funny to me that he was like, "Oh yeah, I got to explain how I'm going to stick around."
Yeah. I did really like as well early in the game. There was, I don't know if you interacted with this, but I think when you first go through that cave, maybe in the first mission, there's a statue, and if you interact with it, T'Challa's like, yeah, my uncle took me here, and I remember he said all potential Black Panthers have been through these halls, and he also mentions that Shuri has been here, and like she knows about this. So I thought that was interesting, like a little tease of like, ooh, Shuri Black Panther potentially. Probably not anytime soon, but at least planting that seed there of, yeah, like the comics, Shuri is a potential candidate to become the Black Panther. So I thought that was a nice nod.
That's really cool.
There was also another interesting thing. I think I talked to Clint as T'Challa, and the first thing T'Challa said to him was like, "Oh, I heard you went to the future," and Clint says, "Yeah, I don't really know why or how, but it happened." And then he was like, "Oh, what happened to Wakanda?" And Clint was like, "Don't know what happened to Wakanda, but found your helmet." And he was like, "I appreciate your honesty." And I thought that was a nice little reference to where we've been this year.
Yeah, that's pretty. I don't think I experienced that. I did walk around to some characters. I walked up to Thor, who's probably my favorite to interact with, because T'Challa was kind of like ribbing with him. He's like, "Are you really a god?" He's like, "Yeah, of course. Like, I can lift this hammer." And he's like, "Why don't I give it a go?" And Thor was like, "Oh, well, you wouldn't be the first Black Panther to lift the hammer." And
That's cool.
T'Challa was like, "Oh, you've heard of the first Black Panther?" And Thor was like, "Yeah, I'm a god." So yeah, it was just there was some really cool like little like back and forths with some of this stuff.
I wonder, I haven't tried this yet, but if you go to the helicarrier as T'Challa, I wonder what he does when you try to pick up Mjolnir.
Ooh, I haven't
seen that yet. I haven't seen it on the Reddit either, but
interesting. I have seen people pet Lucky the dog as Black Panther, which is cool.
Okay. Very cool.
But yeah, haven't ventured outside of Wakanda in terms of like outposts. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. That might be the first thing I do next time I log on.
Yeah.
Easter eggs. There are, I'd say, less definite setup in this expansion than there was even with the Monica mission, because that was definitely setting up Ultron. This was a bit of a roller coaster because you sent me a clip of Dave Fennoy's character, Zawavari, the mystic spiritual counselor for T'Challa. And the clip was Thor walking into his chamber, and he says something like, "Oh, what a pleasant surprise, Wanda. Like, don't be afraid, come." And a lot of the internet was like, is this a bug? This game's been buggy before. Is this a dialogue that shouldn't be playing? Like, is this a dialogue that would play if our player character of Wanda Maximoff walked into this room? And a lot of people thought that. Then it happened again, but he said something referencing, "Oh, hello, Doctor." And then it happened again, referencing something about Loki. Then I also heard it referenced Wong and the Ancient One. Is there anyone I'm missing?
I think you nailed all of those. I think that was the list.
It was later confirmed by Crystal Dynamics, not a bug, fully intentional. Zawavari is just communicating with them through some like ascendant astral plane, which is still cool, but we all thought these were character teases.
Yeah, was hoping, and they really could be messing with us. I don't think they are. It would be hilarious if they were like, "Oh man, no, we'll just say it's an Easter egg." It's definitely not the case. But when I first saw this clip circulating, I think you and I both were like, "Oh, is he just like communing with them somehow?" Because he is like magic, or he uses magic, I think. But then like all these clips started circulating. It's like, oh, this really kind of seems like a bug. Like if you walk in with Thor, there was just pre-recorded lines from Dave Fennoy being like, "Oh yeah, in a few months, like Wanda's gonna come out, so let's just have you do like a Wanda line real quick." So like that kind of just made sense, and I think we all wanted it to make sense. But it's really cool because it confirms that these characters exist in this world, which is obvious, but it is nice to just sort of realize that there's a bigger universe going on outside of the however many characters are in this game at this point. And that's not to say that, like, oh, they did an Easter egg for Wanda, so she's relegated to being an Easter egg. I think she's totally possible as a character, and I think she'd be awesome. I was really excited about that, so I'd love to see her in this game. But yeah, very cool Easter egg. Was hoping for a bug, and it was kind of a soft confirmation that these are characters, but at the end of the day, very cool.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a nice confirmation. Like, obviously, these characters exist in the world. I know in some of the expanded media for this universe, like the comic, the Thor issue features Loki. Apparently that tie-in novel for the game features Doctor Strange, so like they were also on that leaked character sheet pre-launch of all those data. Remember there was like 30 characters that was like, oh, these are all likely to come to the game or being spitballed in some capacity. It's exciting because they're confirmed. Hopefully this game has a solid year 2. Hopefully now that most of the problems with the game, like game-breaking problems, are dealt with, maybe they can get into a pace that they originally envisioned. That's very hopeful, because we were supposed to get all 3 of these additional characters from launch to December last year. Maybe next year is a bit more in line with that vision, but I did see a lot of other people point to the fact that the official website has a new character slot for a new hero. It says coming soon. Is that Spider-Man? Probably. Is it a more general, everybody gets this hero? Yes, no, maybe. I don't know. But Wanda or Strange would be cool early next year for the movie tie-in,
Yes, definitely. I think that's a great call. Definitely Spider-Man coming up. They probably want to tie it in with the movie. Mm-hmm. And yeah, for either Wanda or Doctor Strange, I would prefer Wanda personally. But I feel like they'd probably both play the same. For that tie-in would be a good idea. Or honestly, like Wanda around October, even if it's next year, I feel like she'd be a great October month character.
What if every year it's a War for expansion and we do like War of the Sorcerers or something, and then around Multiverse of Madness it's like you get Wanda and Strange, and yes, they're very similar characters. Think of it like Kate and Clint, but here you go.
Yeah,
I think that'd be
dope.
perfect.
That'd be really cool.
So, well, any final thoughts on our first week with Black Panther and War for Wakanda before we move on, Jack?
Yes. I want to ask you how you feel about this as an expansion, because like it's very different than what we've seen with like Kate and Clint, where those were like DLC drops for sure, and it was new characters with a storyline, but they were very shorter, or they were much shorter and didn't feature like wholly new environments. Obviously, we had the Wasteland, but it wasn't anything as super detailed as Wakanda. So like, how do you feel about this piece of DLC like positioning itself as an expansion?
I feel good about it. I think, like what you led with, we have to also consider that it's free and it's not like a $40 Destiny expansion. I think here, in the context of this game, it's framing as an expansion is good because new-ish objectives that don't feel super repetitive to the ones we've been doing for a year. Really nice, new, refreshing environments, a new character, and some really, really good campaign missions, I would say. I think the beginning and final mission are highlights. But I will put a little asterisk of I'm waiting to pass full final judgment until we see what the War for Wakanda Omega level threat is. And I kind of have a guess based off of what the mining facility rumor was. I honestly think it will be that final mission, just harder, and probably more enemies, which I don't have a problem with, because I thought the objectives of that final mission, that kind of gauntlet style, bunch of different objectives and then a big boss, that works. And I think if you elevate that to be an Omega level threat raid like thing, not as cool as a full-blown raid, not as cool as Ghost of Tsushima Legends raid, but still good. So that's where I stand.
I think in the context of this game and like all the DLC and stuff that it's put out, I feel like it definitely like justifies itself as an expansion, because it's just simply more content than they've released so far. The thing I come back to though is I beat the expansion. I'm still working on like leveling up my Black Panther, but like at the end of the day, I feel like I put 3 hours into this, which is more time than I put into Clint and Kate's DLC. But at the end of the day, like I put that time into it, and I'm like mostly done with it in a way. And I think if you're coming at this from a general video game perspective and you see expansion, you expect something that will pull you in over and over again. And I don't necessarily think you'll be getting that with this. Like, obviously you can jump into more war zones and stuff, but again, that's just, content that you will repeat that you've already played, which has, been the Avengers thing since launch. So I'm kind of hoping that within the next few months, like, the expansion just kind of continues in terms of like multiplayer updates and things like that. Because this is a multiplayer game that really doesn't have good multiplayer, which is very upsetting. And I was kind of hoping for this expansion to turn that on its heels and really come out and be like, hey, no, there's some great multiplayer. And obviously this is week 1 and it's focused on the story. So I hope maybe in a few months, if the War for Wakanda branding is ongoing and they add some multiplayer content tied to this expansion, then that'd be great. But yeah, right now, like I feel like I had my fill.
Sure.
And I do hope that is expanded on a little bit more. But at the end of the day, I really can't complain because this is free.
Sure.
I keep coming back to that. Like, this is a free 3 hours that I got that I mostly enjoyed my time with. But maybe one day I would hope for a $20 expansion that is beyond anything that we've seen so far. I'm kind of at that point right now.
Yeah, I think that season of War for Wakanda idea isn't unlikely, because remember they said that the Omega level threat for this is coming post launch of this campaign. So
Right.
Is that next week? Is that 2 weeks from now? A month from now? I don't know.
Or 6 months from now.
Sure. I know what Destiny typically does with its expansion is the raid drops the Saturday after the expansion coming out, so people can get time to level cap and stuff like that. So yeah, and then a season usually picks up from there of like, hey, season of blank, and it's continuing that story. So I know Avengers isn't framing itself as that way right now, but at least with dropping an Omega level threat that is tied to this game, maybe it is just a Omega level threat version of that final mission, kind of like what we got out of Kate. I'd be like 10% bummed if that was the case. That's like, okay, so most Omega level threats outside of whatever the cloning lab is just going to be a harder, more multiplayer focused version of a mission from an operation. That would be a bit of a bummer. I say 10% because I do really think that final mission would lend itself very well to that Omega level threat format, way more than the Super Adaptoid Family Reunion mission does. But I hope that's not the trend, right? Because as far as we know, Cloning Lab is still that, hey, we designed this exclusively for this Omega level threat branding. It's not a repeat. So we'll see what happens. Maybe the mining facility raid isn't that final mission. Maybe it's recontextualized. I will say as well, I remember from a dev stream earlier this year, they mentioned that one of the elements from War for Wakanda they were working on, they might have said raid, or they might have said threat, had a horde mode element, and they were looking into branching that off. Do you remember that comment?
I remember talking about horde mode mechanics. So yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, so maybe, like you're saying, dish out more multiplayer content in this War for Wakanda branding. Maybe we get a threat and a horde mode out of it, and that continues to build off that expansion idea that you were talking about. So
yeah, that'd just be a nice way of continuing War for Wakanda, and just, not having it just stop in week 1.
Yeah. And all of that is speculation, but it is speculation based off of comments that Crystal Dynamics has said over the last 6 months. So
right.
And some data mining. But yeah, overall, really, I had a good time with this. Would you give it a score right now out of 10? Is there one in mind?
I don't know. It's tough because you got to judge the content, but also judge the fact that it's free. I would say I certainly wouldn't call it a home run. I don't know. I'd give it I don't want to give it a score higher than the game. That feels weird. But I guess I could do that.
Yeah, because judge it based off what it's trying to do, I guess.
Yeah, I would say 7.5, 8, maybe.
Okay, I was gonna say 8 because I think
it's very solid.
Yeah, there's really no technical issues. I had a weird thing with Shadows Night 1, but that got fixed, I think, with that patch.
I had that too.
Yeah, but that was the only technical problem I had. Everything else ran well. It was fun. I'd give it an 8. I think they did a real good job with this expansion.
I think that's a good score. You sold me on the 8.
Excellent. Well, we will probably talk more about War for Wakanda, the event, and Black Panther on next week's episode. But this week, meanwhile, some things going on in the Marvel Universe. I did see this rumor that Venom might get delayed again. No new date attached to that rumor, but hot take, Jack, you surprised?
No. Everything is... We're regressing, really, which is, a sad reflection on our society in many ways. So this doesn't really surprise me. When COVID first hit, like obviously things were very unclear, and we're just back at that point again.
Yep.
So yeah, no, nothing really surprises me in terms of like delays or anything. Like I don't know if there are any plans I have for the fall. I wouldn't be surprised if like those are canceled or something, just because this is the Delta variant is surging again. So yeah, it's sad. I could care less about seeing Venom in theaters. I really want to see Shang-Chi in theaters. Kind of wishy-washy on that at this point because, can't see it elsewhere. But yeah, no, I would not be surprised if this is delayed again.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to this movie. I would like if Sony was just like, you know what, $15. There you go. We'll watch it at home, because I would love to do that, even though I did greatly enjoy my Venom theater experience. I know you did not, but
no, I would rather I would prefer to watch this at home, so there's no like stray light fixtures falling in front of me, like warning me, like get out, you're wasting your money. So yeah, I mean, my TV would probably fall over or something. Like there would have to be like an equivalent, like the universe has to tell me this.
Tom Hardy walks out of your kitchen with the rotisserie chicken out of the fridge, just eating it, being like, "Hey, you busy? You want to watch my movie?"
Yeah, watch it with me.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I'm glad you brought up Shang-Chi though, because there is some pretty positive, glowing reception for Shang-Chi right now. Obviously, with every Marvel movie, I think there's the asterisk of some of the people that see it early absolutely are critics. Some of the other ones are just huge fans. So that best one so far, Hyperbole, we hear it with everyone, but I have heard generally no negativity or much criticism for Shang-Chi out of the early screenings.
You kind of expect like the early reactions for an MCU movie to always be positive, just because the MCU's a big part of it is the hype cycle. And you don't want to be a Debbie Downer. And like I don't think I've really ever seen like negative opinions about like early reactions to Marvel stuff. It just like doesn't happen. So that doesn't surprise me, but I am excited that like what you said, it is positive, but like some of the truth is kind of seeping through, so it does seem like reactions to this are pretty positive. I know people are like really hyped about the obviously we don't know it, but are hyped about the post-credit scene. Like people are saying it's like one of the best in the MCU, and that could be hyperbole, but I feel like that's a weird thing to talk about right now. Be like, yeah, you gotta stay for the end of this movie more so than any other MCU project.
Because man, like if I saw Spider-Man Homecoming early and I walked out of that theater, I would have been like, that's the best post-credit scene they've ever done, because it was so clever, so that could really mean anything.
Yeah, it totally could. I'm really excited for this movie. I'm so worried for it. I'm very worried for it.
I know.
I don't know if you were mentioning this on the show, but like you mentioned to me at least that it doesn't seem like Marvel has really been pushing this as much as they should, or as much as they have with other movies. And like Simu Liu is like really the only one who's like going to bat for this movie, which is concerning for like the main actor to be like the main marketer of this film. So that's something. And the fact that this movie is only available in theaters, and I know it's like some people internationally like just can't go to the theater. It's like even worse in other parts. Like movie theaters are closed down in some countries still. So like people just can't see this movie legally. So yeah, I'm kind of worried for it. It's very important, this movie, in terms of representation. So that's a whole nother thing involved with it. Like it kind of needs to do well in a lot of ways, and like producers from Disney have been calling this movie like an experiment, which is just awful wording.
Yeah,
like,
don't mince words. The CEO of Disney, Bob Chapek, said that. Like,
yeah, just don't say that.
Yeah,
very offensive. So I this movie, more so than others, I'm really rooting for, and like I really want to see this in the theater. I probably will end up seeing it in the theater, probably with a mask on. But yeah, just worried about this for a variety of reasons.
I think what I've settled on, because I said this last week, I've said it on the show before, Shang-Chi, aside from Spider-Man, was like probably my most anticipated MCU thing for this year, like post WandaVision, of course. But because I really want to see it. I really think it looks cool. I like that it's exploring a new era of mythology, a new region, and all that in the Marvel universe. It seems like it should be a very important thing, and it's probably not going to come to Premiere Access because of all the stuff that happened post Black Widow. So like, there's all these very unfortunate things happening. I know no decision will be made before it comes out in terms of getting it on Premiere Access, so I've kind of decided maybe within the first week. Because this comes out September 3rd? 2nd?
2nd, I believe.
2nd?
3rd is a Friday.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a 3rd.
Okay. So maybe like Sunday or Monday morning first showing, because I know that theater will be dead. Like,
that's a good call.
10 a.m. I don't even know if movie theaters open at that point, but like 9 a.m. even. Mask on. Baja Blast out. Like, I'm just gonna have a good time with Shang-Chi. I think that's my strategy.
It's gonna be you and like 5 70-year-olds who are like, gotta wake up early, go to the movies. That's a really good idea. I love going to the movie theater when there's like no one there, so that's a good call. I think it'll probably be like it'll be like a week of approach for me. Like, I definitely want to see this opening weekend because the hype is there, but I don't know how safe that will be. That's like in a couple weeks, and things aren't looking good right now, and they're continuing to not look good, so we'll see.
Like, if I can do Sunday morning, that is ideal.
Yeah,
that's a good call. Because I do want their opening weekend. I want my $12 to count towards that box office haul that it's gonna absolutely disappoint Disney no matter what. So I need to do my part.
Definitely.
Before we move on, I did actually hear that some people were like, I'm honestly even tempted to just buy a ticket and not go, just to support it, but I don't feel comfortable going. So who knows? Maybe that becomes a movement. Maybe we see that happen.
Yeah, it's possible. I wonder how people react to what happens with this movie. Yeah, it's a very interesting movie coming out at a very strange time for it. Very unfortunate time for it. So yeah, I just hope it does well. For sure.
Speaking of movies doing well, Eternals dropped the trailer at like 1 a.m. our time, right?
Yeah, what the hell?
Very weird. I saw someone on my timeline talking about how Marvel's next two movies are kind of getting really weird marketing between Shang-Chi and Eternals. Potentially unrelated, but yeah, Chloe Zhao's Eternals got a new trailer. I believe the final trailer. What did you think of it?
Dude, this was kind of the one that got me.
Yeah?
This was kind of the trailer that really, like, I liked the previous Eternals trailer. I feel like it did a really good job showing what the cinematography of the movie is going to look like in terms of, like, how they shoot it. And it seems like there's a lot of practicality in terms of, like, the locations that they go to and lighting and things like that. But, man, this trailer included all of those elements, but also included some good, like, character setups with who the Eternals are, what their mission is, like, just some necessary backstory for me to really understand what's happening in the movie, and just some, like, visual treats throughout. Like, Superman is essentially in this movie. Didn't realize that. With one of the Stark brothers, his character.
Icarus?
Yeah. Icarus is essentially Superman, it seems. So that's cool. Turning a bus into flower petals. That was really cool. So this trailer really got me into the Eternals, and I'm, like, fully on board with the hype cycle for this.
Yeah, and I always loved the pitch, right? It's like this trippy 70s sci-fi epic, and they wanted it to come across in the movie as that sort of, Roman old film epic style, of like the Ben-Hurs of the world and stuff like that. So I think in terms of a modern standpoint, they're approaching that feeling of this feels, I don't want to say like artful, but compared to the rest of the MCU, it seems like it has a bit more intent. Not the right word, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the feeling I got from this is it felt like the least MCU movie in the best possible way.
Yeah, like this could feel like it's a really good DC movie, you know,
Yeah.
like in terms of the vibe.
Yeah, it's like grittier, and it doesn't pop as much like colorfully.
It's very subdued.
It is, yeah, and I think that's a good change of pace for the MCU.
For sure. And I kind of think that fits really well for like this family of gods, essentially, right? Like they've been around for so long. They've seen so many things, all the ups and downs of the world. They're very maybe tired and wise. So like having this like very kind of laid back like feeling to a lot of the composition of stuff and the dialogue, like I'm kind of into that. And this might be one I want to see on IMAX, honestly, because I feel like it's going to be a visual marvel.
That's a really good call. That's a good call.
So,
yeah, I might be with you on that one. Got to see it in the biggest screen possible.
For sure. Well, that is it for Marvel news. So let's move on to What If? What if T'Challa was Star-Lord? General thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like this is the better of the two What If episodes so far. Much less constricted to the story elements of Captain America: The First Avenger, and this felt a little bit, it was a combination of Black Panther or like his upbringing as well as Guardians of the Galaxy in a way, but it felt like pretty separate from those projects, and it took its own story and just placed T'Challa in the role of Star-Lord. And they messed around with a lot of things, obviously, in such like really fun ways. And there were some characters that I did not expect to be in this episode that I loved. Yeah, I feel like this is a really great episode to show that What If like can just be these like fun little stories that don't have to like concern themselves with the canon, and just plays with what if these characters were in different perspectives. So yeah, great episode, I think. What about you?
Yeah, I think it blew the Captain Carter episode out of the water, honestly, because I had fun with Captain Carter, but I did feel like our main talking point last week was like, yeah, it just felt kind of rushed because it's a movie plot we all know, and then it's just hitting the greatest hits elements and putting Peggy in that role instead of Steve. So like, it was fun for what it was, but it really felt like a retread, fast forwarding, no time to stew on the characters. Here, I felt like we got a whole well-developed arc for T'Challa as Star-Lord, and I didn't know where the plot was going at all because it was all very new. Like, I don't think it mimicked, unless I'm being completely oblivious, I don't think it followed the general arc of Guardians 1, 2, or Black Panther. Like, it felt like it was telling its own contained story and a really fun twist on things we know and expect about Marvel, where Captain Carter was more Mad Libby of like, hey, we're filling in the blanks, but this time her name's Peggy, not Steve. So I like this style of What If, I think, a lot more, personally.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was probably the bigger detractor of last week's episode, which I really liked, but it was just a spin on that movie, whereas this one was a wholly new story, which I really appreciated.
Yeah, definitely. We can get into spoilers. I was very surprised in the opening credits when I saw Josh Brolin. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, didn't see that name. So I was very surprised when he showed up.
Yeah. What do you think of his New Leaf Thanos?
I loved it, man. It was really cool that Thanos like explained it. That Star-Lord essentially was just like, Yeah, he had a conversation with me and like showed me that there were better ways to deal with, the issue at hand.
Hmm.
And then like he makes multiple jokes about how genocide is just easier than what he ended up doing,
Yeah.
which is really funny, and it shows that he's kind of insane, but lovable at this point. So yeah, great use of Thanos, really, and it's probably a good avenue to use him in like animation, which sometimes tends to take the subject matter a little, less seriously than live action things. So, yeah, great use of him and great use of Josh Brolin. Like, he fit in very well as a voice actor with this show.
Yeah, everything they did with Thanos I really loved, and it made me feel like I was watching a comic book because it was like, wow, the one simple fact of Yondu picking up a T'Challa instead of Peter Quill led to Infinity War never happening. So, like, that is the type of wild stretches you can make in a comic, like what the What If comics are, and I think that here just made it feel like such a more fun time. Like, I genuinely have no idea what the next thing is gonna be. Um, and in a similar vein, in terms of praising Josh Brolin, who I agree did a really good job, um, Chadwick Boseman, his final performance in the MCU, his final performance ever, uh, I thought he absolutely destroyed it. I was very surprised at the humor he brought to the role, because I feel like T'Challa in Black Panther and the MCU, he kind of plays it straight, but he does have those moments where he can like crack a smile and joke with Shuri or someone. But I thought he just felt so natural as that wisecracking Han Solo-y spaceman.
Yeah, definitely. We we talked about a lot last week about how Sebastian Stan kind of missed the mark as a voice actor. But yeah, he just felt so natural in this role, and I'm glad that he was able to take T'Challa and mix him up a little bit with Star-Lord, and just have his spin with that version of the character, which I thought was done so well. And I think he had mentioned before that he wanted to bring some of like the voice acting he did and like some of the voices he did for this iteration into the next Black Panther movie. So it's good that it's nice to hear that he was like really proud of this performance, rightfully so, because it was a really nice performance.
Yeah, and if this is the final performance we have from Chadwick Boseman, I think this was like what a great one to leave off on, because it was just really fun, and I think it was through his performance very clear, like you're saying, that he was proud and he was having a good time doing this. And I think the time for being more serious about it and his legacy with Black Panther 2 will come, and that's going to be more retroactive about like talking about him, not highlighting him. And here I think it was just like a really nice additional 30 minutes with him in this role, that no strings, it was fun, in and out. This is kind of a gift from him in a weird way,
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, I thought he killed it. And of course the rest of the cast, Michael Rooker, Karen Gillan, Sean Gunn, everybody else who returned, I thought did a really fun job. They were playing up their roles well.
The dude who wasn't Dave Bautista that sounded exactly like Dave Bautista.
I know.
I forgot about we had talked about this maybe off air at some point or another, that Dave Bautista like wasn't contacted for What If for whatever reason. I think at the end of the day, like some wires got crossed and like someone tried to reach out to him but didn't successfully do it. Whatever. That dude, I forgot about that, and that dude just sounded like Drax the Destroyer. I thought that was Dave Bautista.
Yeah, I remembered when I saw Drax and the voice came out, and I was like, oh yeah, that sounds like someone trying to match Dave Bautista.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that wasn't the only Guardian they didn't get, because Peter Quill does show up at the very end, and
right.
was not Chris Pratt.
Dude, Benicio del Toro was the Collector in this?
Really?
Could have fooled me.
Yeah.
Let me double check that. I did hear Kind of Funny talk about that, and I was like, no way. That just did not sound like the Collector. Maybe that was Benicio del Toro being like, yeah, this is a different version, so I'll do a different voice.
Like the Collector before just seemed like a eccentric, obsessive man, but now he's a gangster, right? He's a crime lord, so I could see him playing up a different take, potentially.
Yeah. I'm going to research this, because I was not sold. I was very surprised to hear that he. Oh yeah, the Collector, Benicio del Toro.
Wow, very nice.
Did not sound like him, but like I said, maybe it was just him, spinning it off. And Kurt Russell coming back.
Yeah, I saw Kurt Russell in the opening credits too, and I have to wonder. It's probably just like the Stanley Tucci thing. They probably like sampled and sourced their lines from the movies they did already, and they just credit them, right?
Probably, because like it's weird to think like, oh, they got this person for this. It is Marvel after all, so I'm sure they could. But yeah, it is. It's like for The Force Awakens, they sampled Alec Guinness's line saying, "Don't be afraid," and they like cut it out and like dragged it out to make him say Rey. It's probably doing something like that.
Yeah, I think that was probably because I can't imagine they got Kurt Russell in a booth for like one shot of him being like, "Hey, Peter," or something like that. Like that. I'm sure there's a deleted scene in Guardians footage that they just took that from. But
yeah, that's probably likely. It is possible that they did like a remote session with him, and he just, if he had a home studio, which a lot of actors do, he just recorded one line. But yeah, it is probably from footage from before.
Yeah. I breezed past it before. I want to give a huge shout out. I thought Karen Gillan as this version of Nebula was very entertaining, and her chemistry with T'Challa was excellent, and I hope this is the direction of Nebula post Endgame. Just like, turning things over, being a bit more, having some more control over her life now that her revenge quest is over,
Sure. I think a nice in-between between where we saw her now with this and where we know Nebula would be nice. Definitely over the shtick of her just kind of being, sour the entire movie. So it would be nice if she, gets a little bit more character to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like now that Thanos is gone after Endgame and she's rolling with the Guardians, hopefully she can. Like now she's actually with the Guardians, not just like checking in on them time to time. So hopefully Guardians special for Christmas next year. Hopefully Guardians 3, she again feels a bit more confident and like a more fleshed out character with agency than just I'm always self-serious and need to kill my father.
Yeah. How do you feel about Howard the Duck?
I think he's not overused in the MCU, and they always cut him like 30 seconds before I feel like I'd be over it. I don't know if you feel differently.
I think he's fine. I don't know if he is a character that would get his own story. I feel like they're being very hesitant about that. Like, I don't know. He was featured in the end of the Guardians of the Galaxy 1 in a post credit, and then like more so in Volume 2, and he also fought against Thanos' army in Endgame, which I think is absolutely hilarious. Yeah, dude. He's behind He's behind Evangeline Lilly when she pops up.
I don't think I knew that. Maybe I did and I forgot, but damn.
Yep. So I feel, and with this, I think this is definitely like his biggest role in the MCU. I feel like we're probably getting more Howard the Duck soon. I don't know what that looks like.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Remember that Hulu thing, the Offenders Initiative or whatever that was? Like, MODOK was part of it. Wasn't Howard the Duck one of those shows? That
sounds right. I don't know if it's a Seth Green performance or not.
Okay.
Like, and I don't even, it doesn't, are those MCU canon?
I don't think so. I don't think MODOK and Monica and AIM were canon. I don't think that was.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. In terms of the MCU, I would like to see him, I guess, in like a supporting role. That'd be cool. Redeem the apparently atrocious Howard the Duck movie from the 80s. That'd be cool.
Sure. Any other things that stood out to you about this What If episode that you want to shout out or praise or critique before we wrap up and rank it?
Nothing comes to mind. I do like sort of T'Challa like rediscovering his roots with like the Wakandan ship and the music cues from Wakanda. Yeah, I think they did a good job with that.
Yeah. I'll say out of all the premises we know and what we've seen so far, I think this is a project from What If that I will probably revisit in the future. Like, I don't know if I'd go back and rewatch Captain Carter. I don't know if I'd ever get like a feeling of like, oh, I want to watch that again, unless I'm doing a full-blown rewatch, but I could see myself just throwing this on here or there because I really did like the story and the character interactions a lot.
Yeah, it's fun and it's very different than any of the stories that it's connected to.
Yeah. I think we're on the same page of this is number 1 and Captain Carter's number 2.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah. Looking ahead to next week, I don't know if you have... I can't tell you like what all of the other episode pitches are. I know a couple of them. Is there one you're hoping to see next week out of the ones you know?
I already know what it is, I believe.
Oh, what is it?
It is Fury's Big Week. And it's like the spin on... I believe it's the spin on him, like, collecting all of the Avengers before Avengers 1.
Whoa, that's cool.
So I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if this is after Captain Carter. Like, I don't know if this is connected to episode 1 where Captain Carter comes out of that and then Fury is like, well, I guess we need to assemble the Avengers. I don't know if that's what it is. I feel like we see her again, so that's possible. But yeah.
Very cool. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to Samuel L. Jackson in animated form. That'd be fun.
Oh, yes. Very excited for that.
Hell yeah. Well, until then, Jack, where can the agents of Excelsior find you?
You can find me on social media at Fascinated Jack. What about you, Christian?
You can find me on Twitter, Twitch, TikTok at Chun2D2, as well as here, youtube.com/joyclicks for the video version of Excelsior in the Excelsior playlist, alongside the playlists for all of the other podcasts we have on the channel, like Jedi Knights, our Star Wars show, Long Play Club, our book club for games, Gamescast, and everything else we've done in the past. If you would like to get the audio version of the show, you can check it out on Apple Podcast, Spotify, your service of choice. Just look up Excelsior, Avengers Podcast, or Joyclicks. You will find it. And if you can rate a review on that platform, it would be appreciated because it helps us out, lets the show find more people, and we appreciate it. If you want to support us, though, at the monetary level, check out patreon.com/joyclicks at the $1 and $5 tiers. $5 tier will give you producer credit on this show and every show we do, like Charles Applin and Arian Easton. So thank you very much. And that is it for another week in Marvel. Next week, I imagine it's going to be a pretty dead week for Marvel's Avengers.
Yeah.
Unless we get some surprise. But we'll have to wait and see. So until then... Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't CinemaCon next week or this weekend?
I'm glad you mentioned that. CinemaCon is happening, I think, in between this episode and next episode.
Okay.
Are we just hopeless romantics at this point, Christian? Clinging on to something that won't exist?
I think we are Peter Parker knowing how badly we want to be in a relationship with Mary Jane. Mm-hmm. And then day by day, just doesn't work. You know?
But then one day she leaves her wedding randomly. And it's like, oh, sweet, this is happening.
Yeah. One day Sony's like, you know what? Digital release is only for the future. And then they release it. They release the trailer, everything's happy.
Brandon Davis from comicbook.com tweeted that in an interview he had with Kevin Feige did say that a trailer for No Way Home will release before the movie. So.
Okay. That's helpful.
Yeah. So there's that, whenever that may be.
I mean, that could be whenever, because December is where it's at right now, but we all know that Sony loves releasing Spider-Man movies on 4th of July weekend, so we'll wait and see.
Yep.
That'll do it, but we'll keep our eyes peeled for leaks or reports on trailers. But until then, Excelsior.
Excelsior.